Hey, Minnesota State Representative Krista Knutson. We have reached the first and second deadline of this legislative session. And what that means is any bills that are going to be considered for passage later this session must have had at least one hearing in any of the committees that we have in the last 6 weeks. I've talked a lot about fraud, and we have many bills that we are hoping to get across the finish line relating to fraud. But for this video, I wanted to talk about affordability, making Minnesota more affordable. And what are we doing to try to make Minnesota more affordable for the Minnesotans that work here and live here? A couple pieces of legislation are federal conformity bills. They're aimed at conforming to what federal government is doing. No tax on tips and no tax on overtime. Allowing Minnesotans to keep more of their hard-earned money would make Minnesota more affordable. Another piece of legislation that has had a hearing and is going to be considered for passage later this session is the tab fee bill. In 2023, under the Democrat trifecta, they increased our car registration tabs drastically. This bill would bring those rates back down to what they were prior to the 2023 trifecta, making Minnesota more affordable. Another piece of legislation would help our small and medium-sized business owners. It's the pass-through entity tax. Again, this is conforming to federal law, but it would allow Minnesota small business owners and medium-sized business owners to not pay so much in federal taxes. Federal taxes, it's a zero cost to the state. It's common sense. Saving Minnesota's business owners will help them expand their businesses, hire new employees, invest in their communities, and it costs zero for the state. So that's another thing that I really hope we can get done before the end of session on May 17th. Another piece of legislation that we have is relating to our schools. It's a bill that would opt us into a federal program that was created last year. It would allow schools to set up an SGO, which is a scholarship granting organization, and then any Minnesotan can donate $1,700, up to $1,700 to the SGO of their choice. These can be set up by public and non-public schools. And in return, they will get a $1,700 federal tax credit. It costs zero for our state. Governor Walz could actually opt us into this program right now if he chooses to, but so far he hasn't been willing to do that. So we have legislation that we're hoping to pass that will make him do this. Again, zero cost to the state, and it will help our schools immensely. Schools can use this money for special education, which Governor Walz has said he wants to cut by $300 million. They can use this for transportation, which is a huge issue in greater Minnesota. They can use this to help teachers buy school supplies. They can use this for tutoring services. Really, there are so many options that our schools could use this for. It's a no-brainer. And actually, if Governor Walz doesn't choose to opt us into this, Minnesota residents can still send that $1,700 to a school in a different state, such as Colorado, who has opted into this program, and still receive that federal tax credit. So why we're not doing this in Minnesota to help our Minnesota schools is beyond me. Zero cost to the state. A couple other pieces of legislation that we're really hoping to get across the finish line are aimed at helping property taxes. Property taxes have been through the roof in the last few years. A lot of this is because of the mandates that the state is pushing down onto our counties and to our cities and to our schools. So any help that we can get there in passing these property tax relief proposals would definitely help make Minnesota more affordable. There's a lot going on. The last few weeks of session are going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out and all comes together. We need one Democrat to vote with us on these proposals, and we can get them into law in Minnesota. So we will see where we go from here, but I just wanted to share a little bit what we're doing to make Minnesota more affordable. So remember, Minnesota's worth fighting for.